Ashley, who's in Missouri. Ashley's wondering, do elephants get any types of diseases in the bush, and if so, what are they? They can get lots of different diseases. Most common in more dry areas like this and further north of us that elephants get that they die from isn't so much disease, but they do contract anthrax quite commonly, only during the dry season though. As soon as it's wet, anthrax goes away. I'm just trying to find a spot to turn around. So anthrax is probably the most common disease. They can get things like brucellosis and things like that, but it's very uncommon. What happens is you find that elephants in captivity contract a lot more diseases than elephants in the wild, and due to confined spaces and quite often inbreeding, so lack of genetic variety and genetic protection against disease. So in the wild, the elephants are not too common to fall prey to disease, but there's a whole host of diseases. I'm trying to think of offhand, but we don't really see it too often. Sorry, I just need to be on. Okay. I just need to tell Andrew. Andrew, do you have visual that my pimpan just went into the shkova 2 minutes ago? Okay, there we go. It looks like they're all disappearing, and just make them out. Fortunately, Andrew got here in time, and I don't think we're going to be able to see much more of them as they go down into the riverbed. I think we're going to start slowly making our way maybe back towards the lions, see if there's any action there. I've got a feeling there might be later on, especially. No. Oh, no. Of course, while we get back towards the lions, let's go see how Byron's tramping through the bush is going.
So we're walking through an area now that's getting a little bit thicker. So you've got to be a lot more careful while walking through here, scanning a lot more, just because it is thicker and you might have animals probably looking for shelter down in drainage lines like this. Animals like perhaps buffalo that have moved through into this area. So we do just have a good look around and scan very carefully while we are walking. Now it feels like a few little drops, so we might have to rush back to the tent just in case. Hopefully it passes. I don't think so. Maybe it's just threatening with 1 or 2 little drops of rain, and it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. Now we saw Brent was sitting with those elephants. I'm very jealous. I do love elephants, and I can see there's a clear sign of elephant over here. What's happened is these elephants have come and pushed these trees. This is a combretum tree that they've pushed over, and they've done that to get to the roots. So this is quite old though. This this didn't happen recently. And what happened was, as they push these trees over, the roots are exposed, and the elephants like to feed on them. The reason for that, there's a lot of nutrients in the roots, so it's a good food source for the animals. But fortunately, these roots stayed anchored in the ground. Even though the tree was pushed over slightly, it's still alive because those roots are still anchored. And you can actually see how green this combretum tree is at the moment. Now this is a red bush willow, Combretum apiculatum. That's the name, the scientific name of the bush willow. Combretum apiculatum. This particular tree, Combretum apiculatum, and the reason why, or an easy way to remember the scientific name, I'll show you one of the leaves. Let me try. Look, here's a nice one. Now this bush willow, actually, if you have a look at the tip of that leaf, it's got a very, very sharp little point, or a pick, and I think that's where the name apiculatum comes from. It's just easy to help remember the name of the tree, the Combretum apiculatum, the red bush willow. They do get wonderful, wonderful seed pods, beautiful seed pods, and hopefully we'll start seeing a few more of them in summer. Some of the other combretums, and it's like a winged seed pod. I'm trying to see if I can't find 1 or 2 here. I doubt we'll be able to find any now. But these beautiful winged seed pods. It's like the best way to describe it, and maybe I can show you just by holding leaves up. So these are just dry leaves, but occasionally the seed pod will look almost something like that, a winged seed pod. I mean, that's the closest I could get to making it look like a seed pod, but that's what a seed pod would possibly look like. But it has got 4 wings that spread out, and it's a beautiful seed pod, and they do get a wonderful brown, this dark golden brown coloration to them. And one of the other combretum trees, the Combretum herreraense, which is a russet bush willow, the pods are actually a lot smaller, but they've got plenty of pods around the leaves or stems. And what you can use those pods for, if you take the pods off, you pop it into boiling water and you let it brew, you might get a wonderful bush tea. Now, I have tasted it. It's not great. Doesn't give too much flavor to the tea, but it's or to the water, but it's a bit better than just drinking hot water. So if you are stuck in the bush and you don't have anything warm to drink, you boil some water and you feel like a bit of flavor, you can pop some Combretum seed pods into the water and try it. And maybe if we start seeing seed pods later in the year or towards the middle of summer, I may just show you what it's like, and we'll do some tastings. Get some of the cameramen to try bush tea with us. And we're going to continue on through this drainage line now. And speaking about all the trees that we have around, Rob, you wanted to know, are there any trees in this area, trees or plants that are toxic to some of the herbivores? Now, Rob, there's one little flower that we do see in this area, but it flowers in winter, so we're not going to see them now, and it's known as the Impala lily. Beautiful white flowers with bright pink and white flowers, and those are slightly toxic. Nothing actually feeds on them. No antelope species really feed on them. Some of the leaves might be fed on by kudu at some point during the year. In summer they get the leaves, but no flowers. But in winter, when it's very barren and dry and everything else has lost its leaves, you see these beautiful bright pink flowers from the Impala lily. And animals don't feed on that because that is slightly toxic. Another toxic tree we can see out here though, and because we're approaching a drainage line, I'm having a look to see if we don't see one now. Let me just have a look. Is that one there? It is indeed. It is indeed. So follow me. It's a little far, but we might be able to show you. I'll get a little bit closer. And this tree that we have, this large tree behind me that's growing off the side of the bank in this drainage line, is called a tamboti tree. Now, why I said the chances of us seeing one here are pretty good is because they do rely on a lot of water. So they grow along the edge of rivers and usually dry riverbeds where the water table is a lot lower, a lot higher, so they can get to the water very easily. Now, these tamboti trees are toxic to us, but so toxic that if you happen to start a fire and you burn the wood, even just inhaling or sitting close to the smoke of that fire can make us very, very ill. And I have had it before where we've made a fire and we accidentally picked up some dry tamboti wood, put it on the fire, and it does burn. It gives off quite a sweetish scent within the smoke, and we obviously sitting around inhaling the smoke without realizing it. We all got headaches and weren't feeling too good after that. So, but in saying that, because it is toxic to us and it is poisonous to us, some herbivores do feed on it though. And the two probably most common herbivores that feed on them are black rhino and kudu. Kudu will also feed on the tamboti trees. So for some reason their digestive system helps them and it doesn't affect them like it affects us. But the worst thing you can do is, if you are in the bush, is build a fire close to a drainage line like this, because a lot of the wood that you get around here might be the tamboti tree. So unless you are an expert and you can tell the difference, just be very careful with collecting wood around these areas. Rather move away, collect some wood and then come back and build your fire. Because if you cook on that fire and you get that smoke moving into the meat or whatever it is you're cooking on the fire, it can make you violently ill, cause a lot of nausea and some seriously bad headaches, and you can get very, very sick. I'm trying to see now which direction we're going to go to move through here. Alright, we're going to try cross through this drainage line. It's a little deep, so we might lose signal, but let's head over to Jamie and get an update from her.
While Byron makes his way through the drainage system, I'm sort of going through an internal debate in my mind. None of us have had any luck with Karula, so I'm thinking about moving towards Arathusa. It's been a while since I've been on there, so I might just go and poke my nose and see what's happening that side. I'm a bit concerned, though, that it is going to start pouring with rain. And I got a little bit caught out yesterday afternoon on the sunset safari when I went all the way to Cheetah Plains, and then there was a torrential downpour and we had to get all the way back. I'm concerned, and I don't want a repeat of that situation. I think the drizzle must be moving in from Brent's side, though, because he's had to put his rain covers on. I've only had 1 or 2 drops and I'm okay. I know what I'll do. I'll go and lurk along the edges and listen to the game drive radio and see whether there's anything on that side. And if there is, then we'll go across. If there isn't, then we'll stay a little bit closer to home where we can rush back and pop our roof on. I'm starting to think that this 100mm prediction might have been a little bit optimistic, though. And supposedly it was going to rain 100mm. This morning we spent time filling up sandbags to help to stop flooding in case it did rain 100mm in one go, because you'll find that a lot of the camps would have flooded. Probably Brian and Connor's room would have been the first to have been underwater. So we filled up sandbags, and from the Mulwati, Gert came along to help us as well. And I'm starting to think it might not be due. Okay, Brent is thinking it is about to come pouring down. Actually, now that I look at that, it does look a little bit... Sorry, I know there's massive power lines, but I'm just doing a quick cursory observation of the scenery around me, just to see whether or not I should start. I know there's power lines, it's not the greatest of views, but I just want to see what the rain is doing. That looks like drizzle to me. And it's starting to pitter-patter. I think Brent's got the right idea. I'm going to start heading back towards home as well. Putting those massive roofs on is not a 2-person job either. It is quite an interesting experience. Yeah. Okay, we'll scrap going to Arathusa for now, and start at least making sure that we're in the vicinity of camp, so that if it does start to bucket down upon our heads, we are close enough to escape. Oh, wonderful! Questions coming through from Andrew. Sorry about the bumps, everybody. Hold on a moment. Hold on to your hats. Andrew, who is a new viewer and has just stumbled upon this, welcome to you, Andrew, and welcome to being part of the massive safari vehicle that is our Safari Live vehicles, and welcome to the Wild Earth family. Now, you want to know where we are and what are our favorite things to see. It depends on our mood, it depends on the day. There are so many things, but that obviously not our location. What we like to see, not our location. So we are coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve. Oh, luckily we've got a wheel squeak to keep us company. And we're coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. So we're right up in the top northeastern corner. And Andrew, please do send through where you're from. Oh, look at that Impala. It's got half a horn. It's broken off at some point. But please do send through any questions that you might have. We do love hearing from you, and we'd love to know where you're from as well. And what are my favorite things to see? I don't know, we've been so spoiled lately. I like the unusual and unexpected things, Andrew. The odd moments that you just can never predict. The times where you drive around a corner and all of a sudden there's a leopard right next to you, or you're sitting in a sighting and all of a sudden wild dogs come through. I love sitting with spotted hyena, but most of them have moved off to the north of where we can drive at the moment, so we haven't spent that much time with them recently. I love elephants. I love spending as much time as possible with elephants, and I love exploring this beautiful area on foot as well. I can't begin to narrow down what are my favorite things to see, but I do really enjoy the surprise that awaits every single game driver. The level of excitement in the fact that you can't ever predict exactly what you're going to see. We could go around the corner right now and bump into, for example, just throwing it out there, a leopard. Just because I've been looking for her for the last, since this morning. So you never know. I love that about being out in the bush. And the other thing that I love, of course, is not knowing everything about everything. We are always learning. There's always a way to learn. For example, I should know by now that I probably could have avoided driving along this road, since it is a main road and it comes with bumps. We call them rumble bumps, but they're actually corrugations. I'm going to start slowly noseying on back to camp, just in case we do need to chuck a roof on. And while I do that, speaking of the bigger cats, let's go back to Brent and his lions.
Well, they're on the move again. We've got Nkuhuma and it looks like Amber Eyes next to us, and just off to our left behind us is Djuma and the youngest Nkuhuma. Well, we could see some more spectacular action with these big cats. If she keeps going the way she's going, she's going to head towards where the others are. There we go, there we go. We can hear the noises, the growling. Look how close they are to us. They're the others. Lots of growling. See how he's trying to keep his body between Djuma and Amber. Djuma is growling back now. Okay, I'm just going to try. Vim, can you show me where the lines behind us are? So I know where to move. Okay, they're lying down. I'm going to just move forward a bit so we can get in a position to see both. Get ourselves in the best spot in case there is a bit of pandemonium. There we go. There's Djuma and the youngest Nkuhuma. Now Natasha's wondering, how old does a lioness have to be before she starts mating? Well, Natasha, they come into their first estrus cycle at just over 2 years old, and so that's when they start mating. But it's unusual for them to have cubs till they're about 3.5, 3 at the earliest. Normally around 4. Those big fat bellies. The youngest lioness has got those very distinct 2 little scars now that we see quite clearly there. 3 actually, if you look carefully. There's those 2 and a little one further to the right. There we go. Now, more than likely she got those while feeding. It's probably from another lion. It could also be from hunting. It could also be from fighting off the attentions of Mfumo or Tinyo. And as you can see, or maybe even hear, there's the pitter-patter of raindrops are coming. Is the great deluge that is predicted for the weekend on its way. So we've been told there's supposed to be 120 mils on Saturday. I'm not so sure yet, but the weather is looking quite ominous so far. And as you see, Jamie has run off to put her roof on, and I've got my rain suit on. Well, Raisa says she's done some research and says we're only getting 30 to 60, not the great deluge of 120. I'm going to move again, just get in between them. So if anything does happen, we're in the right spot. There we go. How's that, Vim? And now notice how he purposely keeps his body between himself and the other male, and even that in itself is a sign of dominance. And the fact that Mfumo is putting more effort into Amber Eyes than to the youngest female means it's more likely that she is the one who's about to come into estrus. See, every movement is close attention. Well, there we go. Some lion kisses. A glance over his shoulder at Tinyo, then making sure his body is blocking her from going that way. Oh, big toofies. It looks like he's opened that wound up a little bit and all the shenanigans. Still looking nicely healed in comparison to what it was a while ago. Looks like he might have got a claw or a swat. Let's open it up slightly. That could just as easily be from one of the girls as from Tinyo. There's our gorgeous Amber Eyes. Now, Shark is wondering, with both males present, do I think the female has a preferred mate? In this situation, with two coalition members, it's the stronger and more dominant who will, not because the female prefers him, because he is stronger and more dominant, more aggressive, and will beat out the other male to keep him away. There we go, just growling, just making sure Tinyo can hear it. Tinyo doesn't look like he's listening too much, though. He's popped his head up slightly. Mfumo. You just go on and on and on. I'm just tired of this nonsense. Making his presence well known. Now, we've been chatting about the possible deluge that's on its way. And Brian in Gauteng, not Brian Joubert, the other killer bee, but another Brian in Gauteng in Johannesburg, says they've had 75 mils in 2 days, and apparently it is on its way. So it'll be interesting to see how much we actually get, if we get any at all. Now, out of these two males, just from watching them as often as we do, I'd say it's very possible that Tinyo is a little bit older, maybe even up to a year older than Mfumo. And just looking at his ears and the darkness of his mane. And oldest or biggest isn't always most dominant when it comes to male lions. It's all about attitude. It's who's the most aggressive. And Mfumo has got a well-earned name, the Authority, because he is a very aggressive individual, and especially when it comes into interactions around mating with the females. And I definitely think we're not moving inch, or actually we'll probably move around a bit, but we're not leaving the lines. I think there is a strong possibility that we might get some interesting action as the sunset safari progresses, especially as it becomes cooler and if any of the lions start to move. Now, Pete's wondering, do lions mate all year round? They do, Pete, and their estrus cycles are quite regular if they don't actually come into estrus, or if they don't actually, sorry, that's completely incorrect, if they don't actually conceive. And they will mate generally for 4 or 5 days at a time, and every sort of 15 minutes for about 3 or 4 seconds. Not very long, but very frequent, and it can be quite a violent affair. And they'll often, sometimes the females will swap partners. There's a male who's been mating for the first 3 days. He's so concentrated in mating, he might lose a bit of condition. Another male who's fatter, fuller, happier, might come in and be able to push him off. So it is not uncommon for them to mate with say for the Birmingham boys, there are 4 members of the coalition, to mate with all 4 in a space of 5 days. Well, we're going to keep sitting here to see what happens with the Birmingham boys and Nkuhumas. While we do that, Byron has got something a little smaller and a little bouncier to show you.
Have a look at this little guy that we have found. A tiny, tiny little grasshopper. Actually, it's not that small, but beautiful colors on this grasshopper. And he's been hiding on this log, trying to stay camouflaged, not moving around too much. And it does blend in very, very well. It's a beautiful grasshopper. It's always interesting when you lift up certain logs and have a look around. You can find incredibly interesting creatures. But he has not moved at all, which is great. I don't want to disturb him. I don't want to move him around too much. Something else that I've managed to spot, which is actually quite venomous. Have a look here. Now there's a violin spider hiding under this log, just over there. In there, and I don't want to touch it in case that spider bites me. But these violin spiders are very, very venomous. And it's hiding in the log. So that's really interesting to see. Nice to spot one of those. And what else have we got here? Seems to be it. There's 1 or 2 baby millipedes, little millipedes, just at the tip of my stick over here, moving around. There's a little one there. There's a lot of activity under these logs, and of course all the termite movement, and we can see over here, look at all the termites still on the log, just at the tip of my stick there. You can see them moving around and also packing sand on areas where they've started to eat and feed on the wood. Sammy, you wanted to know, have we ever had any issues with ticks while we're on the bushwalk? And yes, indeed. Now, give me a second. I just want to move this log back because I don't want to disturb this little habitat or microhabitat that we found, or too much. So I'll just turn it back. This will look a lot easier than... Oh, there we go. That's all right. So their home is intact again. So Sammy, definitely, I have had many ticks on bushwalks, and we do have to be careful. And a few years ago, when I was guiding full time and doing a lot of walking in the bush, I did get bitten by a few ticks, and we get pepper ticks out here. They're tiny, tiny little red ticks, which are not always easy to see, but they do bite you, and it's very, very itchy. Think of a mosquito bite, perhaps, how itchy that is, and amplify that by about 5 times, I would say. That's how itchy a tick bite can be. And I'm trying to think now. I've actually got a tick bite. And if you have a look there, that little red bite on my leg, that is from a tick. And it's very, very itchy. And usually what happens with the tick bites, though, you can get something called tick bite fever, which some of you might know as, it's not quite Lyme disease like you get in the United States, but it is quite bad, the tick bite fever. And what it does is it gets you really, really weak. Your muscles and your joints all ache, you get headaches, and all you try and do is for a few days is sleep, and it'll affect you about 4 or 5 days, about a week. You can take antibiotics for it, or just try and get it to work out your system, but once you've had it, chances of you getting it again are very, very slim. So you won't necessarily get it. And you've asked what a tick nest looks like, and usually it's not something that you can see very easily. William, you were asking about that, and what it is it might be just a little nest or clump of ticks that sit on a branch. Now I'm trying to think, perhaps something like this, for example. It's usually on grass. It won't necessarily be, or it's unlikely to be on little plants or leaves like this. These are little silver cluster leaf trees that are starting to grow here, and it most likely won't find too many ticks on here, but on grass thickets or grass tufts, you'll find clumps of these little ticks all sitting on there, and usually along game paths. And the reason for that is obviously when the animals walk past them, the ticks are able to just cling on, and they bite into the animals, and then they drain as much blood as they can. They feed on the blood on animals. Now the animals generally don't get affected by this tick bite fever like we do, but if they do get infected by too many ticks or get too many ticks on them, it can affect them eventually, and especially older animals. But usually it's just little clumps of ticks that will sit on grasses or grass blades, or you might just get 1 or 2 sitting on a grass blade waiting for an animal to walk past, and they'll try and cling on and bite the host animal. And Egg Fat, you've asked, what is the point of a tick in the wild? Good question. Now, I mean, every insect and every animal and every bird species all play a role in the ecosystem. Now, the ticks, I suppose, if anything, if you think about it, they provide food for animals, and especially birds. A lot of birds all feed on the ticks. So even though they sit and they feed on, or they feed off blood on animals, and they do sit on animals, birds still feed on the ticks. So they're providing food for bird species, and perhaps for other insects that might feed on the ticks too. So I suppose the biggest role would probably be food for certain animals, or birds rather. So there is a role for them, but even though they are a parasite, it is still a food source for certain birds. So they do play a role, even though it's not ideal having tick bite fever for us, or for them affecting too many animals or sitting on too many animals. It's hectic. Yes, Sarah, and you say that the tick bite fever might also be known as Rocky Mountain spot fever. I think is what you said. And that could very well be, yes, it could be similar to that. I have heard some American guests use that term before, and I think it's quite similar. I know the Lyme disease, though, is much worse, and I do think you need to seek medical help for Lyme disease, and I think that's really bad. We don't have that here, so I'm not sure exactly what the symptoms are or how bad it affects you. But the tick bite fever, I know I have had it, and you end up sleeping for about a week and resting, and you're just really sore, and your joints and your glands swell, and it's not very pleasant at all. But it's an excuse to sleep for a week. So if you need to take a week off work, perhaps just say, look, you went to Africa, you got tick bite fever, and you're down for a week. And so no one can no one can argue with that. Maybe I'll tell Steph tomorrow that I've got tick bite fever. I don't know if I can take a safari or a walk. I doubt he'll believe me. Alright, it sounds like Jamie was a little worried about the rain. I'm not sure if it is going to rain, but she's got a roof on. Let's head to her and see where she's heading.
I do indeed have a roof on in case the heavens decide to open upon us, so that we are protected and that our equipment is protected. Once upon a time, I say once upon a time, it wasn't that long ago, when I first started working here, if there was but a hint of rain, we used to race back to camp, do a segment under the roof, and that was that. That was the end of the safari for that particular drive. And now we've got to the stage where we've got a roof over our heads, quite literally. It does mean that if wild dogs come through, things might get a little bit interesting. And it does mean the odd, some very strange contorting of oneself to try and get it on. But once it's on, if the heavens do open, we have got protection. We can essentially roll down all of the sides if we need to, including the front, which hopefully we won't need to do, because then I definitely can't drive anywhere. And that's that. We can continue on as if nothing had changed, admittedly with just the pitter-patter of the rain upon the roof. And there we go, question about the animal behavior, because what we often find is that we see less when there is a downpour. And driving, you want to know, while I drive along, you want to know what happens to the animal's behavior when the rain comes down. Do they hide? Do they run for cover? Do they still hunt? It depends very much on the animal that we're talking about. So if we're talking about the general game, so potential prey species for the predator, impala, zebra, whatever they may be, they tend to try and shelter. If it's during the day, they'll try and shelter. Often you'll find if it's a windy day with rain that they'll go and they'll lie down just to reduce the surface area that's exposed to the wind, and just to drop down for a little bit of shelter. But if it's now, as we're going into the evening, you'll see that a lot of the herd animals, things like impala, wildebeest, are going to start moving towards the more open areas of the reserve, because they feel incredibly threatened on nights like tonight is going to be. It's dark, it's cloudy, it's windy, they can't see anything, they can't hear, they can't smell because of the rain, and as a result it is a perfect hunting weather for predators. So for our big cats that are nocturnal hunters, they will be out and about straight away as soon as it gets dark, except maybe for the Nkuhumas, who've got a meal and relatively fullish bellies, although they could still go out and hunt. And the leopards will be exception. You'll find that there'll be a much higher success rate on nights like tonight. But for the diurnal predators, for cheetah and wild dog, during the day, if it's weather like this, they will definitely be hunting. But at night, they definitely won't be. Whereas if it's a nice, clear, crisp, full moon night, they might be moving about more than they would otherwise. So it very much depends upon the animals. Most of them go about their daily business. They can't really. When you're an animal and your survival is based day by day or night by night, if you're a nocturnal creature, you can't really afford to have a rain day, essentially. You can't really just decide, you know what, actually I'm not coming out of my burrow tonight because it's raining. They have to go out, they have to go and find their food. So for most of the animals out here, it doesn't change their behavior all that much. And then, of course, it's what happens after the rain that is so exciting to see. Tortoises wandering about, lots of insect activity. The birds seem to chirp with an extra hint of merriness in their voices after rain, almost as though they know that there's going to be more food available for them. The snakes are more active, the frogs are more active. It's what happens after the deluge that's very exciting. And some of the best ways to experience that is, of course, on foot. And remember how I said that the animals move to open areas? Well, Byron has got some Impala on one of our biggest clearings.
That's right, Jamie, 100% right. And as you mentioned, the Impala moving out to the clearings when it starts getting dark, and that's exactly what's happening now. They're moving out towards the open areas. It's a nice area, and I'm sure later on this whole clearing will be full of Impala. And it's just a nice area for them to be able to scan around and look for potential predators that might try and hunt them in the evenings. It's easier for them to keep a lookout when it is open, and they can then evade the predators. There's nowhere for the predators to hide and ambush them. And in the evenings, the predators that they would have to look out for are the lions and leopard. So out here, they are quite safe. And I'm sure, and as we saw this morning on our bushwalk, we did see some blood remains on these clearings, and I think that was from Impala births. So because it's lambing season, it's easier for the females to give birth out here, and they are able to keep a lookout for the few minutes they need before the little lamb is able to stand up and move around with them. So it's quite safe out here, and that's why they choose these areas. Very, very nice, and they seem quite relaxed at the moment, even with us being on foot. And it's because we're quite a distance away from them, so they do feel comfortable. We're not posing a threat to any of them. But just as they've come out onto the clearings for the evening, for safety of darkness, under the darkness, we're going to do the same though. We're going to head back to camp. We're not too far. Hope you've enjoyed the bush walk with us. And from myself and Jandre on camera this afternoon, and Herbert, thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and day wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Nkuhumas. Look at that. Amber Eyes luxuriously lying next to us, and Mfumo keeping his body between himself and Amber. And there's Tino. And there we go, that's the youngest lioness, and Tino. And look at that little lamb's tail flower just in front of them. There we go, some wild flowers and some wild lions. Okay, well, everything seems to have calmed down amongst these four. So I heard some growling back at the buffalo carcass. So let's go have a look. Well, it looks like the rain started coming and then left us, but we are, as you can see, prepared for the wet weather just in case. From Tino Mfumo, the youngest lioness, and Amber Eyes. There we go, flat catties. I did hear some growling, so maybe the cubs are still on the carcass. We've been discussing this quite a bit today, and Jeff has asked, with the big meal that they've had, do I think they'll try kill again tonight? I think there's a very strong possibility, Jeff. That big meal was made considerably smaller by the two Birminghams being here. I mean, there we go, carcass is done. There's not almost nothing left for the lions on that. I mean, you can just see almost absolutely zero there. They have even chewed down the ribs. Look at that. Now it's up to the carrion eaters, the flies, the maggots, carrion beetles to do the rest of the job. And here we go. I got 1, 2, 3 lionesses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubs, but I'm sure the others are around, or I just can't see them from here. Ah, see, there's more cubs hiding behind that far lioness. One, there's 4 there, 2. So all 6 present and accounted for. How's that, greedy guts? You can't get enough buffalo, so you're just going to keep drinking mom's milk. As I said, they can't be too far off being weaned at the moment. So maybe another couple of weeks of the females producing milk. Oh, stretching. As I said, yeah, I think there's a good chance they might try hunt again tonight. It's ideal weather, dark skies, possibility of some rain and wind, making their hunting a little bit easier. Put those canines to use, ladies. Talking. Mom, I'm bored. Oh, I just love it when they stretch. Hopefully she does a nice one. See how incredibly supple their bones are. Oh, not their bones, their bodies. Oh, just step over. Maybe she's going to try and see if she can get anything out of that carcass. I said, I don't think there's too much left there. Whoops, let's try and avoid a stump. Oh, it wasn't such a big one, but anyway. Oh, look at that. There's about to be a cub pile by the looks of things on the one lioness. There's 3. Oh, there's 4 coming to join. Oh, looks like he's still on a thorn or just decided to collapse. Oh, bless you. Oh, little greedy guts, are you heading back to the carcass? Isn't that belly full enough? Let's go see what the female's reaction's going to be. Is she going to tolerate, or... As you can see, the lionesses are still hungry. They didn't get as much as the carcass because of the 2 males. The males will accept the cubs feeding while they're there, but generally not accept the lionesses too easily. We are cutting through that thick, incredibly thick buffalo skin. This was a big buffalo bull as well. That noise is not bone, that's cutting through that thick, thick skin. Amazing sound. You can see how she turns her head to the side using those premolars like a big, powerful pair of scissors. What are you doing, you little monster? Doesn't really look like you're doing anything, you're just more entertaining yourself there. Just chewing on whatever you can chew on. As I said, there's not much meat left on this buffalo. Maybe his little teeth can get into spots the big ones can't. James Robertson, it's our absolute pleasure. James says, this channel makes my life so happy. Thank you, everyone. Well, thank you, James, for watching. It's our absolute privilege and pleasure to share the wonders of Africa with you. Well, here comes another monster on its way in. Now, the cub might not be as tolerant of another cub as Mom is of them. Oh, monster number 3. Now, one stoner, 2 cats would like to know, could it be that the cubs are teething? That's why they're chewing on the bones. I don't think so. Their teething process is probably a bit different to ours. And they might still be trying to feed. They might just be bored and playing with what's in front of them. Everything from a pile of elephant dung to a stick or a buffalo bone is a good toy. Sorry, I just will be on the Game Drive channel for a second. Standing by, Andrew. Copy. Thanks very much, Andrew. I'm Kashan. Copy, thank you. Sorry about that. Andrew just giving me an update on Karula. There was a report she was heading back towards Cheetah Cutline, but she changed her mind and went back to the west. There's also a report. Oh, sorry, no. There we go. Get in there. I think I'm the only station here. FM, make your way. Sorry about that, the radio got very busy all of a sudden. There we go. There's definitely going to be almost nothing left tomorrow morning, and it's going to be interesting to see whether they head back deeper into Djuma, or they leave us and go to the east into Torchwood, where they haven't been for a very long time. Oh, 4th ball of trouble is on its way. Look at that belly. How are you going to put anything more in there? You can see, if we look at the female there, if you look in that back there, you can see even though she's got a bit of a belly, there's still that indent there, so she's not that full. Bit of disciplining going on. Nope, disciplining again. It was fine when there was one cub, but now 4 might be just too many. Now, she'll be careful of trying not to make too much noise, because male lions being male lions, the noise of someone fighting over meat, he'll decide, no, it has to be his meat. Cubs being dispersed. Well, we're going to sit here. We're probably going to move away from the cubs as it's getting quite dark and go sit with the others that are about 100 meters away, and we can put lights on them, the Birmingham boys and the 2 lionesses. So while we do that, let's go and see what Jamie's up to.
I've come racing across to the southern boundary of Djuma once again because I heard a report that a Karula was crossing to the north. How she got to the south, I don't know. So I'm not sure what he's... I thought he was trying to tell me something, but he's not. It's just a vehicle on their way to drop off some probably very excited guests. I raced across, and I've just heard on the Game Drive channel, which is the way that we communicate with other guides, that she is not coming north anymore. So I think for this afternoon, or for today at least, I'm going to pack in the search for the Queen of Djuma. I don't know how she got south. She must have crossed a little bit further to the east of where we all checked. I don't know how she managed that though. And so we're back on the southern boundary of Djuma once again, and we'll go off in search of other nocturnal creatures. Now, there's been a report that wild dogs have come crossing onto Djuma. Unfortunately, they are... I got the report as I arrived on the opposite side of Djuma to get to Karula, who then decided not to come that side, and it's a little bit too far for us now that it is so dark. By the time we get there, it's going to be dark and we won't be able to view the wild dogs because they are diurnal animals. But that's something to look forward to for the morning. Hopefully they stay around Djuma. They're not going to be traveling too far on a windy, cold, dark night. I'm hoping they decide to go to sleep there. But what I'm going to do is turn around and go back the other way. I've had a change of heart. I'm going back in the opposite direction. We'll go a different way. We'll go a different road. I was going to try and get towards Sydney's Dam, but the rain is here as well. Good thing we have our roof on as the drizzle starts. I'm thinking about trying to look for our hyenas again, since we didn't have any luck with Karula today, but we did strike it lucky with hyenas last night, and perhaps we'll find that they follow the same path. And thank you to all of those of you who sent through that the one hyena you could clearly identify as Pretty. For those of you that know and love our hyena clan, you'll remember Pretty. She was the mother of November. Was she? Yes, she was. It was Pretty was the mother of November, and then it was Corky was the December twins' mother, and then Madam was the mother of the January twins. Hope you're all taking notes. These are names that we gave to the hyenas. They don't have official reserve names, but these are names that we gave to our spotted hyena as a way of identifying them, just because we spent so much time with them at the den sites that it became really difficult to start using their names by saying the one that we once saw do that a couple of days ago. It just got a little bit too confusing. And so we started to give them names, and it blossomed from there. So thank you to all of you that sent through that it was pretty that we saw last night. The other one is a mystery, but hopefully we'll have a chance to see them once again. Let's think, we're now, November would be a year old. Because I know that Steph said he was certain that the hyena, because he was obviously watching from the tent yesterday afternoon, he said that he was certain that the hyena we saw was lactating. Hello, Waterbuck. And turn all my lights off. Hey, pretty girl. It is very dark, but we can just stop for a peaceful moment and enjoy the Waterbuck in front of us. Massive herd. Did we ever come to a conclusion as to our collective noun for Waterbuck? I don't think we did. I think you all provided just too many good options for what we should call a group of Waterbuck, rather than calling them a herd, which seems a little bit generic for such a unique animal. And Final Control is sticking with a sip of Waterbuck. Ooh, hold on. Oh, I thought it was a sack spider. It would have been a really nice opportunity to show you what a sack spider looks like. It is not, however, a sack spider. It looks like it is a funnel web spider. If I do this, can we see him? He is here. Oh, sorry, no, I'm looking on the dashboard. Sorry. There. Oh, no, he's moving. He's moving. I thought for 1 second it was a sack spider, which, okay, he's not being very cooperative, is he? Just with the black face and the black mouth parts, but the body's not quite fat enough for it to be a sack spider. Now, a sack spider is probably one of our more unpleasant species of spider. It is... I stopped again. Let me try and get another view of it. A sack spider has a really nasty cytotoxic venom. Ah! He's charging! He's charging! Trying not to blow up. Okay, this isn't working. The spider is just too fast for us, isn't he, Gert? Oh, he's making your life very difficult. There we go. I think it's currently occupied building a web across the front of the vehicle. There we go. Well done. No, and back to us we go. Okay, I think we'll give up on the spider for now. I don't want to try and catch it because that doesn't really... I prefer not to handle things like delicate spiders like that. All it does is it upsets them and they end up injuring themselves, so I prefer not to catch them. But I thought initially it was a cytotoxic spider, which is the species I thought it was a sack spider. Now, a sack spider I would not be catching with my hands. They're aggressive little spiders. They're fat, they're pale in color, and they've got black legs. And once you get bitten by them, you don't feel it initially, but after a couple of hours it starts to itch, and after a couple of days you've got a really nasty weeping sore, because cytotoxic, of course, is a cell-destroying venom that they produce. So you get this really horrible infection, and I know a few people who have wound up with such serious secondary infections that they've had to go and spend a few nights in the hospital, and it almost invariably leaves a scar and leaves a big dent where the bite site was. Now, that's one of our nastiest spiders, but I thought it might be nice to show you so you'd know, if you come and visit here, how to recognize a sack spider if you see one. Sack spiders and violin spiders, the two spiders that have the nastiest cytotoxic venom out here. Fortunately, it's relatively rare. I've never been bitten by one. I know that Steph has. Have you been bitten, Kat? Violin spider. Where?
Side.
Did it get infected? Was it bad, or was it...
No, it's just a hole like that.
Just a hole. Kat says it was a hole about this big that it left behind. Now, they can be uncomfortable and quite... They are it's a bite that needs medical attention. As soon as you start to feel it, you need to go to the doctor, and they can start deciding how they're going to treat it, if they're going to put you, what antibiotics they're going to put you on. Right, let's head over to Brent, see what he's up to.
We are still sitting with the authority and Amber Eyes, although they have not moved since we last saw them. Sorry, I'm just looking. Voila. And we have lit them up now. They are looking like they're not moving too much. I was hoping for a bit of action towards the end of this drive. But you never know. These animals can go from flat to fighting in a split second. You can see not too many fresh scars on the authority's face, although that wound has opened up. Can't really see it from there. Maybe if I go forward a little bit there, Vim. Okay, I'll move the light and let me just lean over, change the angle of the light, and take my earpiece out to do that quickly. How's that, Vim? There we go. Okay, there we go. You can see now he's probably been scrapping with old Tinyor down the drag there, and he might have got a claw. Could have just as easily been from one of the females. But alas, it looks like not too much is going to happen here. But I think it's worth playing the patience game and sitting right here next to these sleeping cats. As I said, you never know what might happen. A buffalo might wander in, or the two males might have a little bit of an altercation again. Remember, this is 100% live from the African bush. You are enjoying these lions at the exact same time as we are. And of course, if you are new and you'd like to ask questions, use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or the email address questions@WildEarthTV. Can hear the little cubs growling at each other on the buffalo carcass in the distance. Of course, we're not going to put lights on them. They're a bit young still, so we're going to stay here with the adults. Strange enough, I can even hear vultures having an argument in a tree somewhere. The chirr of a woodlands kingfisher in the distance. Now if she gets up, he will follow. Amber, what did you hear? Did you hear the approach of a buffalo? Oh, you're going to go back to sleep. No, back to sleep. Oh, big lion sigh from the authority, Nkuhuma. I'm sure most of you out there know this, but let's do a little quiz. See if everyone's still awake. It's a bit of an easy one, but let's see how it goes. Who out there knows what a lion's gestation period is? What is a lioness's gestation period? And if you know the answer to that, hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. Let me know if you know what a lioness's gestation period is. Very, very calm here at the moment. Of course, as I say, that can change in a matter of seconds. I'm really hoping that old Amber Eyes has cubs quite soon. Now, Neil in the United Kingdom has asked a very interesting question. He says, is it true that lionesses are attracted to males with darker manes more than males with lighter manes? As a general rule, I would say probably yes. But we're looking at a situation here where Tinyo has a darker mane, yet Nkuhuma is the more dominant. It could be because he's a little bit younger. Oh, here comes a yawn. Oof, look at that, he's got a bite under his chin. Or it could be a claw scratch as well. Yeah, definitely been in the wars with either the girls or Mr. Tinyo. Now, there's been quite a lot of research done. Generally, males with darker manes tend to have higher testosterone levels, but it isn't always a fixed rule. But as a general rule, it seems to be that females have a preference for manes with darker manes. Males with darker manes. I don't know why I'm getting those all confuddled today. But his mane is darkening quite quickly. If you think about how much these boys have grown in just over a year, it's absolutely incredible. So here we go. Well done to William. You are spot on. James, and who's a new viewer, James Robertson. Unfortunately, you're a bit long-lived, but that's why you're here, and we can all learn together. William is correct. It's 3 months, or 90 to 110 days is the average gestation for the African lion, and it is an amazingly short gestation period for a big animal. It's shorter than Impala and the other antelope species. Now, the reason for this is there is such a high mortality rate amongst the lions. 70% of all cubs born in this area will not make it to adulthood. Mortality rate amongst the lions. 70% of all cubs born in this area will not make it to adulthood. Now, the biggest killer of lion cubs is actually male lions. Generally not the coalition members, if they're nomadic males coming through, and even sometimes their own coalition members like these guys. Around a kill, they get into a spat with each other, or a female, a cub accidentally gets whacked and breaks her back. And so male lions are generally the biggest killers of lion cubs. Okay, well, we're going to sit here hoping for a bit of movement. While we do that, let's go see how Jamie's spotlighting technique is going.
I happen to think I have a fantastic spotlighting technique. I mean, with this roof, I can't do my usual that James used to tease me about for a very long time, about my spotlighting technique. And in fact, it's actually quite comfortable, just resting my elbow on the side of the door and searching and scanning for all sorts of nocturnal surprises. Something like a chameleon, perhaps, or even a serval. I've got high hopes for this evening because the nocturnal creatures might decide to come out a little bit earlier. Speaking of nocturnal creatures, one of the things I'm looking for is snakes in the road. Now, we've already discussed some of our venomous spiders. So, Lois in Buffalo, you wanted to know about whether or not we keep anti-venom on site or if it is something that we have to go into town for. Anti-venom is particularly snake anti-venom. There's only really one spider anti-venom, and that's for the recluse spiders, the brown and the black recluse, the equivalent of the black widow, the brown widow that we get here. They have neurotoxic venom. That's the only spider that has anti-venom for its bite. There is, however, anti-venom for snake bites, but it is exceptionally strictly controlled. There only are certain places that stock it, and actually the current thinking and the current medical treatment is leaning away from using anti-venom unless it is an absolute last resort. And that's because people tend to view it as a magical cure, and it's not really. And in fact, a lot of snake deaths can actually be attributed to the administering of anti-venom. Sorry, let me just turn off all my lights. Can be attributed to the administration of anti-venom. I'm just turning off my lights, by the way, because the spotlight I don't want to shine the spotlight on the Impala and the Inyala that are around me. It just not damages permanently, but it takes away their ability temporarily to see in the dark. And obviously with all of these pregnant ewes around, it's not something we want to do at all. But the anti-venom, to get back to that, the anti-venom is made from the antibodies of horses. It's constructed not artificially. It's naturally produced through the antibodies of horses. And as a result, most of the population goes into anaphylactic shock as soon as it is administered. And there was a brief moment in time where certain places used to keep anti-venom with them, and it killed more people than it saved, because people immediately start. Now imagine you've got the symptoms of a snake bite now combined with anaphylactic shock. You can't breathe, you can't speak, and you've already got the neurotoxic effects of snake venom flooding through your body. So no, we don't. To cut a long story short, we don't carry anti-venom, and for a very, very good reason. It's exceptionally dangerous. Even these days with mamba bites, the tendency is to move towards just treating them symptomatically. And I say just, it's not that simple. But your body will break down the venom, provided you are kept alive with neurotoxic venom, provided you're kept alive artificially, your body will break down the venom and you will recover. It's much better than throwing out a risky anti-venom shot. Hello, little scrub hair. I'm going to shine directly on it. I'm just going to bounce the beam off the ground. Don't disappear, don't disappear. Lots and lots of scrub hairs on Djuma. The only Lego morph that we get here. It's going to pop out there. We got it. There he is. Let's go forward a little bit. Hopefully it will give us a slightly clearer view. Okay, little one. Anna Banana, that is a fantastic username, Anna Banana. Thank you for adding a little bit of a bright spark to what has been a lovely day. While we watch our scrub hair bound along, Anna Banana would like to know what research is done at the Djuma research camp. Nothing at the moment, apart from the everyday research that we do in terms of live safari filming, but there's no scientific research happening there. It is an old name that was given to the camp when there were research students living there. There are no longer research students there. Instead, it is packed full of Wild Earth hooligans. And we do some intense researching of our dinner every night, and that's just because we love Amanda's cooking so much. But other than that, and there is no research happening right now at the Djuma research camp. And we always refer to it, you raise a very good point, because we often throw out the names of where we live without really giving an explanation as to why they're called that. And I do wonder how many first-time Safari Live watchers have heard us talking about the DRC and wondering how on earth we managed to commute from the Democratic Republic of Congo every day all the way to South Africa and then back again. I imagine not many of them think that, but perhaps those that haven't grasped basic geography might have been confused. Oh, I'm just going to take off all my lights. Got another lost little Impala. Not lost, it's just gone bounding past. And I don't exactly know where Mom is. I'm just going to check for it. Oh, it's not an Impala. It's a steenbok. It is a steenbok. No panic, that's okay. And while we carry on, let's go over to Brent, who has switched to give you a really cool perspective of the lions.
Well, we were playing with the IR. We've switched back to normal light because, of course, we're not with the cubs. And Amber has just sat up slightly, but old Mr. Authority Mfumo is still very much a flat cat, and you can see the rain is starting to fall. Could this be the beginning of the deluge that is on its way? We have sandbagged the DRC, we have sandbagged the tent. So Jamie, Byron, Hat and myself spent after morning drive filling sandbags in preparation for this great deluge of rain that is supposed to be coming over the weekend. But don't worry, we'll still be here. The drops are starting to get quite big. You might hear the pitter-patter on our rain covers. He's using the side of the road as a very comfortable pillow. There is the Authority. Now, I think these lions might hunt again tonight with this weather. It's a great opportunity to be able to stalk up without smell and sound being very noticeable due to this pitter-patter of rain. Will be softening the sounds of the lion's stalk as well as their smell. Oh dear, this is getting quite hard, Vim. Now, Vim, if you come a little bit to the right towards the lights, but close to the car, you might be able to see, there we go, you can see the specks of rain starting to fall as it catches our light. Vim, are we going to run for it?
No, we're waterproof.
VM's comfortable, we're waterproof enough. I've been sitting here considering whether to make a run for home before it gets too wet. VM's confident in our waterproofing of the vehicles though, and VM is our technical expert on the vehicle. I think I should probably stick to the lions. And they're sleeping, in case anyone was wondering. You hear that? It's VM readjusting our rain covers. Light rain like this is not going to send them hiding for the cover. Oh, here comes a yawn. Now Paul's saying Do I think most animals made it through the drought better than expected? Well, I'd say almost exactly as expected. We always knew the buffalo and hippo were going to have the worst of it. The lions were going to have generally a good time, although I didn't expect that white mussel disease. So that just tells you how bad the drought was. But on average, I'd say most animals made it through pretty much as expected through the worst drought in about 100 years. But after drought is now time for rain, and apparently it's all coming in one weekend, and that's this weekend. And the rain is coming from the right direction. It's coming from the east. That's where we get our big rains from. It's hard to believe the massive violence that these cats are capable of in a few split seconds when you watch them dozing like this. Look at his little paw, cockeyed there. I was actually hoping that they might start roaring, but it seems like the bellies are too full of buffalo. Oh, did you get a raindrop in your eye? A little blink there. Okay. Oh, I think another little raindrop somewhere that was a bit cold. So before the deluge descends upon us here, we're right on the eastern boundary of Djuma. We're going to start making our way back towards the DRC. It's been absolutely splendid having you with us. Some wonderful sightings of that baby Ellie, the lions, and baby Impala with Jamie, and lots of wonderful little things with Byron. So from VM and myself, adieu, and we'll see you in the morning.
While Brent travels all the way back to the Democratic Republic of Congo, we don't have to go quite so far, and the enticing smell of Amanda's dinner is positively wafting across the great open plains that divide us from her. And it has been a lovely afternoon. For me, it has been relatively unsuccessful today. I set out to find the Queen of Djuma, and we did not find the Queen of Djuma. But there is always tomorrow, and it did sound as though at one point she was thinking about going to Djuma. So, sorry, something just bit me. It did seem as though she was thinking about going to Djuma, so maybe she will. Maybe she shall change her mind, leave Chitwa, and come and join us on Djuma for the sunrise safari. Who knows? I will be walking tomorrow morning, which I'm looking forward to. I do enjoy the bushwalks. It's such a fantastic time to learn about all kinds of different things. Sarah, I would be lying if I said the thought hadn't crossed my mind. Sarah says, is she the only one that thinks that perhaps Karula might be enjoying this game of hide and seek, and that she loves watching the show? Sarah, that is, not Karula. Or maybe Karula would enjoy watching the show. I don't know. Probably not. I have to have a good chuckle, because yesterday Byron was desperately looking for her, and then as we finished the show, as Rebecca said, and drivers wrapped, you are off air, I look to my right and there's a leopard, and it's Karula, snoozing, happy, large as life, right next to the road, right next to where I got out and put the rhino beetle yesterday. I think honestly what it really is that she's just got so much providing to do for her cubs that she's doing a lot of moving around. She always has moved around a lot, but now even more so to try and fill 3 hungry bellies as opposed to just her own. But the thought had crossed my mind. I'm still not entirely convinced that she doesn't sometimes walk backwards just for fun. just to keep us thoroughly entertained. Oh, the rain's just hit us. We are going to start making our way home because it is starting to rain heavily. Luckily, we've got to take the roof off to get the car under the cover. Well, William raises a good point. Will I be walking tomorrow or will I be swimming? Only time shall tell. I'm quite an okay swimmer, so it should be all right. I'm sure we could do swimming safaris. Perhaps we'll do swimming down the Mulwati live. Swimming live down the Mulwati. Maybe not. I don't know that Graham's going to go for that one. You never know. I'm sure we could sell it to him. But on that note, we have come to the end of our sunset safari, so thank you to Gert for his wonderful camera work. Thank you to the lovely ladies in Final Control, and to Brent on the other vehicle and Byron on foot. Most importantly, to all of you watching across the globe, I hope you have had a marvelous day and that you are looking forward to the sunrise safari tomorrow morning. But until we see you then, I have a feeling Karula's just going to pop up. We'll see you then. Bye-bye, everybody.